our newsroom. It's RTD's English News Edition. Take a look at our major stories. The head of state presided over the 11th year session of the Ministers' Council this morning at the Presidential Palace. As well, in the national news, President Gale sponsors the 70th Summit of Africa Olympic Associations.
That was the headlines, and now welcome the West. Under the leadership of the head of state, the 11th section of the Council of Ministers took place this morning at the Presidential Palace. 8 issues have been reviewed and discussed during this meeting. Let us listen to the government's spokesman for more details.
Question concerned a communication project presented by the Ministry of Communication on the Smart Africa project. Djibouti, by joining this project, has been entrusted with the development of infrastructure and data storage and processing capacities in Africa. The aim is to put in place adequate with the legal framework and regulation to attract investment in resilient, secure and evolutive Africa data center infrastructures. The objective is to maintain local or African traffic, promote local content hosting, to develop the local ecosystem of the internet, reducing the cost of using the internet for local content and improving data security. Djibouti has also paid its annual contribution in the month of February 2017, an amount of $50,000.
Council then considered its draft decree on the appointment of a technical council to the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. The rest in this video.
The second question is about a bill amending and supplementing the Commercial Code. This bill has a dual purpose, a general objective that is to improve the business climate, to provide adequate protections to minority shareholders. For this purpose, this bill introduced the function of independent administration, a shareholder representing less than 5% of the capital, a personality chosen for his skill. This project complement of which companies' officers may be guilty, the opportunity for minority shareholders to convene meeting of shareholders and to have wider access to the company's accounting and financial documents. The third question concerned a bill amending the General Tax Code. Following the national tax base of June 2015, it is crucial for Djibouti to take part in the dynamic of these foundation. The reforms of various provisions of the General Tax Code provided for in this draft introduce an attractive tax, the creation of small and medium-sized enterprises. It is a matter of exempting from patents before the first 3 years to all startups and companies in order to encourage young entrepreneurs in particular. The fourth question concerned a draft decree appointing a technical advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture for Water, Fishery, Livestock. Mrs. Mariam Saeed Ibrahim is appointed advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture. The fifth question related to a draft decree appointing a new official to the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Waqf. Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Sultan is appointed General Secretary of Muslims Affairs, replacing Muhammad Hussein Duale, called for other offices. Mr. Uki Qawrah Fatah is appointed Executive Secretary of the Islamic High Council and replace Abdesalam Fatah Magarre, who has been appointed to other posts. Mr. Ilmi Noor Jama is appointed General Manager of the Waqf Duwan's Zakat, replacing Bashir Bilegele, who has been called for other duties. Suleiman Hussein Musa has been appointed General Director of the Duwan Zakat. Mr. Ilmi Noor Jama is appointed General Manager of the Waqf Duwan of Goods, replacing Bashir Bilegele, who has been called for other duties. Suleiman Hussein Musa has been appointed General Director of the Duwan Zakat and replaced Ilmi Noor Jama, who has been called for other functions. Mr. Umar Ilmi Mohammed has been appointed General Director of the Djibouti Copyright Office. He replaced Mr. Mohammed Ahmed Sultan, who has been called for other posts. Mr. Duali Hassan Ahmed has been appointed Director of Culture. He replaced Mr. Usman Buh Udawa, who has been called for other duties. Mrs. Nabiha Mumin Waberi has been appointed Director of the Djibouti Institute of Art. She replaced Mr. Mohammed Hussein, who has been called for other positions. Mr. Mohammed Hussein Douali has been appointed advisor to the ministry in charge of the cultural affairs. Mr. Abdussalam Farah Magarre has been appointed advisor to the ministry in charge of the religious heritage. Mr. Bashir Bilegele has been appointed advisor to the ministry in charge of Muslim affairs. Mr. Usman Bouhoudoua has been appointed advisor to the Ministry of Cultural Heritage. Mr. Bashir Hussein Warsama has been appointed advisor to the ministry in charge of communication. Samriye Jama Gesot has been appointed advisor to the ministry in charge of mosques affairs. Question number 6 is a drafted decree appointing Mr. Abdi Elmi Ashker advisor to the President of the Republic cumulatively to his duty Secretary General to the Ministry in charge of investments. Question number 7 concerns a drafted decree appointing Mr. Saeed Ismail Hassan, currently the General Director of Economic Development Fund, who has been appointed Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Budget. Question number 8 concerns a drafted decree appointing Mr. Ali Daoud Hamid, who has been proposed as the General Director of the Economic Development Fund.
The President of the Republic, Ismail Gili, has sponsored this morning at the Kembiski Place Hotel the opening of the 17th General Assembly of Africa Olympic Committees Association (ACNOE). This meeting, which brought together some 50 delegates and officials of the Olympic movement of 45 African countries, will take place until the next May 11. The President of the Republic and his wife, the First Lady of the country, Mistress Khadra Mahmoud Hayid, have honored by their presence the opening ceremony of this sporting event. They were greeted at their arrival on the scene by the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Mr. Hassan Kamil Mohammed, by the acting Prime Minister, the President of the National Assembly, as well as the members of the government. The head of state and his wife have received a standing ovation by the African delegates. After the execution of the national anthem of Djibouti and the Olympic anthem, the opening ceremony of this General Assembly has been officially begun.
And at the opening of this inaugural meeting, the chairperson of the National Olympic Committee, Mrs. Aisha Garal Ali, has welcomed the delegation's hostess. She has also made a heartfelt tribute to the respective commitment of the head of state and the First Lady of Djibouti for their unanimous support to the sites of the National Olympic Committee of Djibouti. Let's listen to her.
The Republic of Djibouti, located in the Horn of Africa at the entrance of the Red Sea, is certainly small because of its size, but bigger in its ambition for its people and its regional leadership. Our success is due to our commitment to peace and our capacity to welcome and open up to the neighboring population in need of security. This has earned to our territory the status of a haven of peace. Before going back to the heart of the debate, and because of this General Assembly is elective, I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that beyond the post and the titles, there are important issues at stake waiting for us, and we should take them up to the sport for Africa. The sport we want to offer to our African youth as a fundamental vector of values such as friendship, respect, excellence, and peace. Sport as a pedagogical engine for transmitting, anchoring, renewing notion of generosity, of solidarity and tolerance. It is in these African values. They are the fundamental and universal value that cements sport.
taking the floor in his turn, the president of the Association of National Olympic Committees of Africa, the Lieutenant General Lensina Bladford, thanked on behalf of the president of the International Olympic Committee, the EOC, Mr. Thomas Parsh Djibouti, to shoulder this foundation on the whole of the Olympic delegation for their participation. Here is what he said.
My profound gratitude and thank on behalf of the African Olympic and Sport Movement to Mr. President, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, who has honored us. His presence among us is a testimony to his dedication to the development of sport and the flourishing of youth in Djibouti, and his commitment to the African Olympic and Sport Movement. It was not by chance that we had chosen Djibouti to host the work of the 17 ordinary sessions of our General Assembly. Djibouti is a dynamic country with a great sporting tradition. The prestigious performances of the athlete Anyala Suleiman at different World Championship in athleticism and other major events remain in our memory and in the epic history of sports of Africa. This result have inspired young Djiboutian people to absorb the Olympic value that contributes greatly to the building of citizenship and strengthening the Republican values.
On its side, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohamed Kamil, said he is honored to welcome in the land of Djibouti an event of scope. Let's listen to him.
First and foremost, allow me to begin to express my gratitude in the first place to the head of state. It is an honor at this precise moment where the Republic of Djibouti welcomed the Olympic flame, symbol of peace, love and sharing, the opportunity to salute a convinced Pan-Africanist, the architect and the protector of peace. I'm thinking in particular of the decisive role you played for the return of peace in the neighboring Somalia after many years of chaos and anarchy. I think of your mediation in South Sudan conflict. Finally, I think of your sense of responsibility and solidarity, generosity, clearly demonstrated at the war outbreak in Yemen by opening as widely as possible our doors to more than 3/4 of Yemeni refugees who fled the war and terror. For all these actions I have enumerated and for all your tireless effort, we ought to pay a tribute to you. The Republic of Djibouti is pleased to welcome today this General Assembly sessions of the National Olympic Committee Associations of Africa, the prestigious ACNOA. The receptions of this General Assembly is a good omen and a forerunner of a better future. Since a few years, our land has gently but surely made great strides and imposed itself on the international scene.
And then in a speech delivered at this occasion, the President of the Republic, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, has not failed to emphasize the importance of the Olympic spirit. The President.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me first and foremost to welcome you in the Republic of Djibouti in this special year where we will be celebrating the 40th anniversary of our independence. Let me also thank the President of the International Olympic Committee, Mr. Thomas Bach, and the Chairman of the National Committee of Africa, Mr. Lazana Palenfo, for honoring with their presence at the closing ceremony of the work of the elective General Assembly of the Associations of the National Olympic Committee of Africa, known as ACNOA in Djibouti. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for us to receive in our country the representative of the Olympic movement, the one whose founder of the International Olympic Committee is renovator of the modern Olympic Games. Pierre de Coubertin has cited in his book The Universal History that the Olympic movement is the most important movement in the world of volunteers of all political and religious obedience, and constitute a strategic resource for the development of sport and Olympic Games in the world, in the resonance of the values of friendship, excellence and respect. The Olympic movement is the message bearer in the world. Its motto is to promote the rapprochement and understanding between people, no matter their skin colors, ethnic belongings, gender, or political and ideological opinion. It is with the sport that we learn to live together, to respect others, and to develop the unfailing values of friendship and exchange. Through sport, we build lasting bonds between teammates and rivals.
Continuing its speech, the head of state reiterated its adherence to the values of the Olympic. Once again, the president.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the great success of the Olympic Games, during which the international community's boundaries assemble in a rare moment of unity and solidarity alongside the best international athletes who have proved that it is possible to compete in peace. It is the Olympic participation of the refugees which has sent a message full of hope to the millions of refugees in the world. The creation of this team resulting from the will of the International Olympic Committee to raise international awareness by using the formidable media coverage of the game received the unanimous support of the Secretary General of the United Nations and the General Assembly of the United Nations. The Republic of Djibouti is particularly sensitive to this mark of attention. Since many years we welcome in our land victims of internal or regional conflict. Many people, regardless of their background, nationalities or belief, are playing an important role in the sport, so that the autonomy of the CEO and the role of sport as a partner to the sustainable development are today recognized by the United Nations. As a leader, I myself acutely measure the task that is yours to anticipate tomorrow's change begins today, adapt to the rules and practice to technical evolution, physiological progress, but also to social evolution. In this regard, although we are a young nation, we are the rare one in the world whose Olympic committee is chaired by a woman. We are at the forefront of the CEO president's in his 2020 agenda, and I must say that I'm watching Djiboutian women who take up positions of responsibility in all areas in our society. I would like to take this opportunity to point out the imperative need to combat certain abuses that the sport is constantly facing today, such as cheating, corruption, racism and violence. These practices provoked by the pursuit of performance and above all by the deep desire to surpass the opponent are deemed not in conformity with the fundamental value and the ethic of the sport. Each leader must undertake to respect the principle of equality and fairness, but also fair play in sport, and to ensure that any behavior contrary to ethics and sport morality is written down.
During this inaugural ceremony, present honors have been offered to the head of the state and to the First Lady by the President of the Association of African National Committees. The General Sana Blanfo has indicated that these distinctions are decided by his organization as a gesture of thanks to the respect of the President Gele and the First Lady for their respective contribution to the promotion of the equality and equality of opportunities for women.
In an interview granted to the press, the head of state has expressed very pride about the work accomplished. Today he said that these are 52 countries representing their different national Olympic committees federated within the ANOCA. This is not a small case, he said. It is thanks to Aisha Garrett that the event has taken place. It is a craftswoman who has allowed Djibouti to welcome the 70th General Assembly of ANOCA. It is not only a victory for the National Olympic Committee in Sports of Djibouti, but also for the Republic of Djibouti, as concluded the President.
Here are some of the thoughts of the participants.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. We are proud of Djibouti. And because we are proud of Djibouti, we are proud of Aisha Garrett Ali, because we all know that she's a very dynamic woman who loves sports, who manages sports, and who is doing so well at the level of the Olympic movement. And that's why we are here to give her all the support. We are here to experience Djibouti. because we have seen Djibouti in Aisha, and we know that Djiboutians are as well dynamic, especially the women of Djibouti. That's why we are here.
Well, Djibouti is a beautiful country for what I have seen, but especially what I'm feeling is the warmth of the people. Really, the persons in Djibouti, the Djiboutians, they are a very nice, very efficient, very engaged people, and especially in the field that I know, this Olympic movement. I believe that one of the vocations of the Olympic movement is the universality. The Olympic movement is composed by 206 different national Olympic committees, and we believe that all of them belonging to the movement, they have the right, and I have the duty also to contribute in organizing events that belongs to all of us. Because of this, that when Djibouti was candidate, being a country that this is a small country but important country in the world.
Into the rest of the country's news, in the framework of his visit to Djibouti, the President of Zanzibar, Ali Mohammed Chaine, has visited Lekasal today, accompanied by his delegation. And this comes after his visit of different ports, which is the second step of his movement. This visit is part of different phases of Djibouti's development model and is the first of its kind, which will be a new page for the partnership between the two countries.
A mission of foreign and Japanese companies stays in Djibouti and will remain until the 11 May. The coming of this mission to Djibouti has been organized by the Minister of the Presidency for the Investments, and yesterday evening a reception has been organized in honor of the Japanese delegation at the Sheraton Hotel. The delegation will have meeting with the authorities and the representative of the private sectors of Djibouti to promote economic opportunities and financial resources of the country, and also they will perform a play structure of priority sectors by including military exchange with the private sector. The coming of the Japanese mission is taking place at a time where Djibouti will celebrate the 40th anniversary of the country. The Minister of the Presidency in charge of investment, Mr. Ali Gele Abubakar, participated in the ceremony of the reception with the participation of the Ambassador of Djibouti in Japan, Mr. Ahmed, and the Ambassador of Japan in Djibouti, Mr. Are, as well as the President of the Chamber of Commerce of Djibouti, Mr. Yusuf Adawali. The evening was animated by the Djiboutian artists and also saw the participation of the star of Africa footballer Roger Miller.
In the context of the good mastery of the time in management and the priority for the staff's executives, the Department of Women and Family has closed yesterday afternoon a training in this sense for managers of each department. The closing ceremony was held in the presence of the Minister of Women and the Family, Mumina Hamad Hassan, Secretary General of the Ministry of Women and Family, the responsible of different departments, as well as the coordinator of the Project Empowerment of Women and Capacity Building, Mr. Abdul Razak Ahmed Idris, as well as the trainer, Mahyoub Mohammed. This training, which has duration of 5 days, has focused on the management of priorities and the mastery of deadlines that are skills essential to the effectiveness and success. Let us recall that the methods and tools for management of the time are necessary to allow for the proper functioning of the work. After several interventions of the responsibles, the Minister proceeded to the delivery of certificate to all participants who have benefited from this opportunity.
In intervention, the Minister for Women and Family said that the major objective of this training was composed of the time management. It is priority on planning activities by focusing on the essential to put in place an effective staff with the preventive tools of communications and organization.
The fourth ordinary session of the Pan-African Parliament opened yesterday in Midrand, Johannesburg in South Africa. The Minister of Defense, Ali Hassan Bahdon, was accompanied by parliamentarians within the African Parliament, including Mrs. Safiya Almi Jibril, Mrs. Hasna Hamad Bilal, Mr. Abdullah Barkhad Ibrahim, Mr. Muhammad Ali Fuldiye, Abdou Diriye Zeki, and the objective was to promote the principles of human rights and democracy in Africa, to encourage good governance, transparency, and the responsibility of the member states, and finally, to familiarize the African people with the objectives in the policy aimed at the integration of the African continent in the framework of the creation of an African Union. Let's recall that this 40th ordinary session of the Pan-African Parliament will spread out to the next 19 May with the meetings of the standing committees on the review of draft recommendations and reports, as well as meetings of the Pan-African offices.
In the margin of the conference on higher education and research in the countries of the East Africa and the Indian Ocean, the Minister of Higher Education has organized at the Kimbiski Place on Thursday afternoon a meeting with the Secretary General of the National Commission of UNESCO from 3 countries of East Africa and Indian Ocean. The objective was to examine the progress made since the conference in Tanzania. Then the regional Director of UNESCO and Teresa Jetta explained the purpose of this meeting, and it is desired to see the strengthening of the partnership between the different national commissions and on a basis of rotation with a bottom-up approach to respond to the needs of countries. Finally, the Secretary General have had the opportunity to exchange on the concept of education on sustainable development and education for world citizenship. In the evening, it is on a cliff at Africa village that the members of the commission found themselves.
In Obok, to close the national news, the caravan of entrepreneurship organized by the ANIFEP has organized this morning a launching ceremony of the entrepreneurship with the aim of raising the awareness of young people to the entrepreneurial spirit in order to encourage them to create their own business in a context where unemployment affects most of them. As well, during the week, 25 young people will be able to benefit from this training, which focuses on the management of business creation project, in particular on the formulation of business plan in order to submit a draft in the purpose of accessing the financing from financial institutions.
And now on international news to the Rabi this edition with in South Sudan, hundreds of the children will live in Uganda in a center for refugees from the Sudan today, thought here as the dozen of other equivalent soldiers. Minors represent the majority of the displaced person. The civil war has forced more than 1 million children to flee South Sudan and has uprooted 1.4 million others to the interior of the country, have said yesterday of the Agency of the United Nations. Children represented 26% of the 1.8 million of South Sudanese who have fled their country and live in refugee camps in Ethiopia, Kenya and Uganda since the beginning of the conflict in late 2030. South Sudan is affected by a civil war from 2.5 years. Whole areas of the country are affected by the famine. 1 million inhabitants are directly threatened. That's it for this edition. Thank you for staying with us. Have a good evening.